Natalie Chen smoothed down her navy blazer for the third time as she stepped through the revolving glass doors of Sterling Enterprises. The morning sun reflected off the towering building, making her squint as she took her first steps into what she hoped would be a career-changing opportunity. After 6 months of searching, countless interviews, and more rejection emails than she cared to count, she had finally landed a position as a marketing coordinator at one of the most prestigious tech companies in the city. The lobby took her breath away. Everything gleamed with success. Polished marble floors stretched endlessly before her, interrupted only by sleek modern furniture that looked like it belonged in an art gallery rather than an office building. A massive water feature cascaded down one wall, its gentle sound somehow audible even in the bustling space. Natalie approached the reception desk where a professionally dressed woman greeted her with a warm smile. "First day?" the receptionist asked, her eyes crinkling kindly at the corners. "Is it that obvious?" Natalie laughed nervously, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "You have that excited but terrified look. Don't worry, everyone survives their first day. Marketing department is on the 15th floor. Elevators are straight ahead." Natalie thanked her and made her way across the lobby, her heels clicking against the marble. The elevator ride felt both too fast and too slow. When the doors opened on the 15th floor, she stepped into a maze of glass-walled offices and modern workstations. Everything looked the same, sleek, minimal, confusing. She pulled out her phone and dialed Becca, her best friend since college. "Tell me you're calling because you already got promoted," Becca answered cheerfully. "I'm calling because I'm completely lost," Natalie admitted, walking slowly down a corridor, peering at directory signs that seemed deliberately unhelpful. "This place is enormous. I feel like I need a map just to find my desk. Just ask someone for directions. Everyone looks so busy and important. I don't want to be that new person who can't even find their own department on day one." Natalie turned a corner and found herself in a quieter hallway. Floor-to-ceiling windows on one side offered a stunning view of the city skyline. She paused, momentarily distracted by the sight. "Nat, you still there?" Becca's voice pulled her back. "Sorry, just taking in the view." "Becca, this place is incredible. Everything is so expensive looking. Even the air feels different, like it costs more to breathe up here." Becca laughed. "What about the people? Any interesting coworkers yet?" "Haven't really met anyone properly yet." Natalie continued walking, passing a series of glass-walled conference rooms. Then she saw him. A man in a charcoal gray suit walked ahead of her with the kind of confidence that suggested he owned every space he entered. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that had distinguished silver threads at the temples. He carried himself with an effortless authority that made people naturally step aside as he passed. "Wait," Natalie whispered into the phone, stopping in her tracks. "I think I just saw the CEO. Logan Sterling? The Logan Sterling?" "I think so. I saw his picture during my interview process." Natalie watched as he paused near a conference room door, checking something on his phone. "Becca, he's even more handsome in person, like unfairly attractive for someone who's probably in his early 40s. Are you seriously checking out your boss's boss's boss right now?" "I'm just making an observation," Natalie defended, though she couldn't help the smile in her voice. "It's not my fault the man looks like he walked out of a magazine. If all executives looked like that, nobody would ever complain about corporate culture." She laughed at her own joke, completely absorbed in her conversation. She didn't notice that the man had stopped moving. She didn't see him tilt his head slightly, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. She was too busy entertaining Becca with her commentary. "Nat, you're incorrigible," Becca giggled. "Focus on your actual job, not on admiring the scenery." "Fine, fine. I should probably find my desk before they realize I've been wandering around like a tourist. Talk later? Good luck. Try not to walk into any walls while staring at your CEO." Natalie ended the call and dropped her phone into her back. When she looked up, her heart stopped. The man in the gray suit was standing just a few feet away, leaning casually against the wall beside the conference room door. His arms were crossed, and he was looking directly at her with an expression of unmistakable amusement. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and smooth, with just a hint of teasing warmth. Every drop of blood in Natalie's body seemed to rush to her face at once. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She felt frozen, caught between wanting to run away and being unable to move her feet. Hi. Good morning, she finally managed, her voice coming out strangled. He pushed off the wall and took a few steps towards her, closing the distance with unhurried confidence. Up close, he was even more striking. The suit fit him perfectly. The subtle scent of cedar and bergamot reached her, and those eyes held an intelligence that suggested he never missed a single detail. "First day?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Yes, marketing department. I'm just trying to find it, actually." "I see." He extended his hand. "Logan Sterling, welcome to Sterling Enterprises." The world tilted slightly on its axis. Logan Sterling, the CEO, the man she had just described in embarrassing detail over the phone, the man who had clearly heard every single word. Natalie forced her hand to move and shook it. His grip was firm, warm, and somehow reassuring despite her complete mortification. "Natalie Chen, it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Sterling." "Mr. Sterling makes me feel ancient," he said with that same amused smile. "Logan works fine." "Right, Logan. Of course." "Marketing is actually 2 doors down on your left," he said, gesturing down the hallway. "But I'd be happy to walk you there if you'd like. After all," he paused, his eyes dancing with humor, "it's not every day I receive such flattering observations." Natalie wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. He had definitely heard everything, every embarrassing word. "That's not necessary," she said quickly, trying to salvage whatever dignity she had left. "I can find it from here. Thank you." "Are you sure? This building can be tricky to navigate. Wouldn't want you getting lost and making any more interesting phone calls." He was teasing her now, and somehow that made it worse and better at the same time. There was no malice in his tone, just genuine amusement and maybe something else she couldn't quite identify. "I'll manage," Natalie said, trying to sound professional, despite her burning cheeks. "Thank you for your help." Logan nodded, but the smile remained. "Welcome aboard, Natalie. Something tells me you're going to make things very interesting around here." He turned and walked towards the conference room, leaving Natalie standing in the hallway, her heart pounding and her mind racing. When the door closed behind him, she finally allowed herself to breathe. She hurried down the corridor, found the marketing department, and practically fell into the first empty chair she saw. This was going to be a very long first day. The following week passed in a blur of orientation sessions, system training, and desperate attempts to become invisible. Natalie threw herself into learning everything about her new role with an intensity that impressed her colleagues but exhausted her by evening. She memorized the layout of the 15th floor, learned everyone's names in the marketing department, and made sure to take the stairs whenever possible to avoid any chance encounters with a certain CEO. Her desk was positioned near a window with a decent view, surrounded by friendly coworkers who seemed genuinely happy to have her on the team. Rachel, the senior marketing manager, had taken her under her wing immediately, explaining processes and introducing her to key people across different departments. Everything should have been perfect, except Natalie couldn't shake the memory of Logan Sterling's knowing smile and those teasing words that replayed in her mind at the most inconvenient moments. "You've been staring at that same spreadsheet for 10 minutes, Rachel observed from the desk beside hers on Friday afternoon. "Either you've discovered something fascinating about our quarterly metrics, or your mind is somewhere else entirely." Natalie blinked and refocused on her computer screen. "Sorry, just processing all the information from this week. There's so much to learn." "You're doing great, honestly. Better than most new hires." Rachel leaned back in her chair, studying Natalie with the kind of perceptiveness that came from years of reading people. "But you seem tense. Everything okay?" Before Natalie could answer, her phone pinged with a calendar notification. Her stomach dropped as she read the message. "Project meeting in conference room A at 3 o'clock. Attendees included the entire marketing team and Logan Sterling." "We have a meeting with the CEO?" Natalie asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Oh, the digital transformation project. Logan likes to be hands-on with major initiatives. He's not like other executives who just show up for final presentations. He actually cares about the process. Rachel gathered her tablet and notebook. Come on, we should head over. He's always exactly on time. The conference room was already half full when they arrived. Natalie chose a seat in the middle of the table, hoping to blend in with the crowd. She focused on arranging her notebook and pen with unnecessary precision, keeping her eyes down as more people filed in. Then she felt it, that distinct shift in the room's energy that happened when someone important entered. She didn't need to look up to know Logan had arrived. His presence had a weight to it, a gravitational pull that drew attention without demanding it. "Good afternoon, everyone," his voice carried easily across the room. "Thanks for making time. I know Fridays are when everyone wants to start their weekend early, so I'll try to keep this efficient." Natalie finally allowed herself to glance up. Logan stood at the head of the table in a navy blue suit, his bearing relaxed but commanding. His eyes scanned the room, greeting familiar faces with small nods until they landed on her. For a fraction of a second, something flickered in his expression. Recognition, amusement, something warmer that made her pulse quicken before he smoothly continued his greeting to the rest of the team. The meeting focused on a comprehensive digital transformation initiative aimed at modernizing the company's online presence and customer engagement platforms. As people presented different aspects of the project, Natalie found herself genuinely engaged despite her nerves. This was the kind of work she had dreamed about doing, the opportunity to make real impact rather than just executing someone else's vision. "We need to consider how this affects different demographics," Logan was saying, his finger tracing a line on the projected chart. "Our current approach works for established clients, but we're missing an entire generation of potential customers who interact with brands completely differently." "What if we created parallel campaigns?" Natalie heard herself say before she could think better of it. The room turned to look at her, and she felt heat creep up her neck, but she pushed forward. "Keep the traditional approach for established relationships, but develop something entirely new for younger audiences. Different platforms, different tone, different visual language. Not just adapting the same message, but creating something that speaks their language natively." Logan's attention focused entirely on her, his expression thoughtful. "Go on." Social media isn't just a broadcasting tool for younger consumers. They expect interaction, authenticity, behind-the-scenes content. They want to feel like they're part of something, not just being sold to. We could create series, interactive campaigns, even leverage user-generated content to build community rather than just customer base. The room was quiet for a moment. Natalie wondered if she had overstepped, spoken too much for someone so new. Then Logan smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need," he said. "Rachel, can we get Natalie involved in the social media strategy subgroup? I want to hear more of these ideas developed fully." Rachel nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely." The meeting continued, but Natalie felt Logan's gaze return to her several times, assessing, considering. When the session finally ended 90 minutes later, people began gathering their things and filtering out. Natalie moved to follow, but Logan's voice stopped her. "Natalie, do you have a few minutes?" Her colleagues cast curious glances her way as they left. Rachel gave her an encouraging smile before closing the door behind her, and then it was just the two of them in the large conference room, the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows and casting long shadows across the polished table. "You don't need to look so worried," Logan said, his tone gentle. "You're not in trouble. Quite the opposite, actually." He gestured to the chairs, and they both sat, though he chose one closer to her rather than maintaining the formal distance of opposite ends of the table. "Your ideas today were sharp, insightful. How long have you been working in marketing?" "About 3 years, but mostly in smaller companies where I wore multiple hats. This is my first position at a corporation this size." "Smaller companies can be the best training ground. You learn to be resourceful, to think creatively with limited resources. He leaned back, studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you seem so nervous around me?" "I'm not nervous." His eyebrow raised slightly and a small smile played at his lips. "Natalie, you've barely made eye contact with me since the meeting started. You're gripping that pen like it's a lifeline. And unless I'm mistaken, you've been avoiding the executive elevator all week." She felt her cheeks warm. Of course he had noticed. "I just want to be professional." Professional is good. Terrified is unnecessary. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "Look, I understand our first meeting was unconventional, but I'm not holding that against you. Honestly, it was refreshing. Most people around here are so careful about what they say around me that conversations feel choreographed. I basically told my friend you were attractive while you were standing right there. That's not exactly professional." "No," he admitted, his eyes sparkling with humor. "But it was honest, and I'd rather work with honest people than careful ones." He paused, his expression becoming more serious. "I meant what I said about wanting to hear your ideas. You have a fresh perspective that this company needs, but I can't benefit from that if you're too busy hiding from me." Natalie finally met his gaze fully, finding unexpected warmth there instead of the intimidation she had expected. "You really don't think I'm completely incompetent?" "I think you're talented, creative, and probably going to shake things up around here in the best way possible." He stood, and she followed suit. "Fair warning, though, I'm going to be asking for your input regularly on this project. Think you can handle working with someone you once described as unfairly attractive?" The teasing was back in his voice, but it wasn't cruel. It was almost playful, like he was trying to put her at ease by acknowledging the elephant in the room. "I'll manage," Natalie said, surprised to find herself smiling. "Good, then let's start over. Logan Sterling, CEO and apparently the subject of interesting phone conversations." Natalie shook his hand, feeling some of the tension finally leave her shoulders. "Natalie Chen, marketing coordinator and occasional foot-in-the-mouth sufferer." His laugh was genuine and warm. "I think we'll work well together." As Natalie left the conference room, she realized something had shifted. The embarrassment was still there, lurking in the background, but it had been joined by something else: curiosity, interest, the sense that perhaps this disaster of a first impression might actually lead somewhere unexpected. She just had no idea how unexpected things were about to become. 3 months into her position at Sterling Enterprises, Natalie had settled into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exhilarating. The digital transformation project had become her primary focus, and true to his word, Logan had involved her in nearly every major decision. What started as occasional consultations had evolved into regular working sessions, sometimes extending late into the evening when the office grew quiet and the city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Tonight was one of those nights. The marketing floor had emptied hours ago, leaving only the ambient glow of computer monitors and the distant hum of the building's systems. Natalie sat across from Logan at the conference table, papers and laptops scattered between them as they reviewed the latest campaign proposals. "This visual identity is strong," Logan said, tapping the design mock-ups on his tablet. "But something feels missing. The messaging is perfect for our target demographic, but where's the heart?" Natalie leaned forward, studying the designs with fresh eyes. Over the past weeks, she had learned that Logan possessed an almost uncanny ability to identify when something was technically correct but emotionally hollow. He cared about more than just profit margins and market share. He wanted the company to mean something. "We're telling them what we do, but not why it matters," she said slowly, the realization forming as she spoke. "Every company in our space can claim innovation and reliability. But why does Sterling Enterprises exist? What drives us beyond the bottom line?" Logan set down his tablet and looked at her with an expression she had come to recognize. It was the look he got when an idea resonated, when something clicked into place. "That's exactly it," he said quietly. "When I started this company 12 years ago, it wasn't about building an empire. I wanted to create technology that actually helped people solve real problems, not just add another gadget to their lives. So why don't we show that?" Natalie opened her laptop and began typing notes. Real stories, real impact. We find customers whose lives genuinely changed because of our solutions and let them tell their stories. Not polished testimonials, but authentic narratives. Logan stood and walked to the windows, his hands in his pockets as he gazed out at the city. The silence stretched between them, but it was comfortable now, the kind of quiet that came from spending so many hours working together that words weren't always necessary. "Can I tell you something?" he said without turning around. "When I started this company 12 years ago, it wasn't about building an empire. I wanted to create technology that actually helped people solve real problems, not just add another gadget to their lives. So why don't we show that?" Natalie opened her laptop and began typing notes. "Real stories, real impact. We find customers whose lives genuinely changed because of our solutions and let them tell their stories. Not polished testimonials, but authentic narratives." Logan stood and walked to the windows, his hands in his pockets as he gazed out at the city. The silence stretched between them, but it was comfortable now, the kind of quiet that came from spending so many hours working together that words weren't always necessary. "Can I tell you something?" he said without turning around. "When I started this company 12 years ago, it wasn't about building an empire. I wanted to create technology that actually helped people solve real problems, not just add another gadget to their lives. These past 3 months working with you have been the most energizing, frustrating, exciting time I've had in years," he said softly. "And I know I should probably keep this professional. I know there are a dozen reasons why I shouldn't be saying any of this, but I'm tired of careful. I'm tired of calculated. So I'm just going to be honest." Natalie stood, her legs feeling unsteady. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that somewhere between you hiding from me in stairwells and arguing with me about color palettes, I started looking forward to these late nights. I'm saying that you've become the best part of my workday, and I'm saying that if there's any chance you might feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, I'd like to take you to dinner. Not as colleagues working on a project, but as two people who want to spend time together." The confession hung in the air between them. Natalie's mind raced through 1,000 thoughts at once. The complications, the power dynamics, the office gossip that would inevitably follow. But underneath all of that was a simple truth that had been growing steadily over the past months. She felt it too. "I've been trying so hard not to feel this way," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're the CEO. I'm the new employee who made a fool of herself on her first day. This isn't supposed to happen." "I know," Logan said. "Believe me, I've given myself the same lecture repeatedly, but I can't keep pretending that working with you is just professional interest. I can't keep ignoring the fact that you're the first person in years who makes me feel like myself instead of just a role I'm playing." He reached out slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted. When she didn't move, his hand gently touched her cheek, his thumb brushing along her jawline with heartbreaking tenderness. "I won't pressure you. If you need time to think, if you're not ready, if this crosses too many lines for you, I understand. But I needed you to know. I needed to be honest about what I feel." Natalie's breath caught. Every logical part of her brain screamed caution, warned her about complications and consequences. But her heart, that traitorous, hopeful thing, had already made its decision somewhere along the way during late-night brainstorming sessions and shared laughter over terrible coffee from the office machine. "I'm terrified," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper, "of what people will say, of how this might change things, of whether this is real or just proximity and late nights making everything feel more intense."